Josh and Cecilia. Good morning. Welcome to the Jason Wright Show. All right. And so I want to tee this up. The audience, I want you to know this is, I say this a lot, and the audience hears me say this a lot, guys. I have, it's more times than not, leveraged my podcast as purely a selfish endeavor. It's a great excuse to get to talk to people that I'm curious about, that I want to learn from. And there's something to having a podcast that opens the door for that. And that, if ever that were the case, it is today's conversation. You guys have done something that my wife Jimlyn and I have talked about. I think a lot of people have talked about doing what you guys have done, and I'm purposely kind of teasing this, to making an unbelievably bold, life-changing move. But most people don't have the guts to do it. They don't have the courage. They don't have the partnership that allows for it. There's so many elements to your story. Josh, you and I are very similar. This is probably what resonated with me the most. I know I'm saying a lot right here at this intro, so just bear with me. You and
No
I,
worries.
we're of the same generation. I think we both have a desire to kind of get as many drops out of this, to squeeze as much out of this lemon that is life as we possibly can. And a lot of what you've done is you put a lot of those things that all of us men in particular in kind of this middle age think about doing. And I'm not talking about getting the yellow Porsche and dyeing our hair and being silly. I'm talking
Right.
about really
Right.
going and making some bold moves. I want to start this. I'm going to ask you one question and you answer it however you want. But I want you, Josh and Cecilia, to take us
Mhm.
back to 2018, because I think that was a pivotal moment for all of this. And if I'm wrong, say, no, Jason, that was something happened. But really, here's where this story starts. But I think something critical happened, particularly in your life, Josh, 2018. That's the sense I get, that kind of led to this move, and just kind of take it from there any way you guys want to.
Wow. Okay. That is a rich 6 years. I mean, you took it back
Mhm.
to 2018 because obviously you know some things about me in 2018.
Which you cover in your channel.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, 2018 was life changing for me, traveling with my son, learning about myself and who I wasn't. I hit the road with my son for the better part of 100 days, and I discover I'm not anything I thought I was. I was unprepared for that experience. Anyway, that's a whole story, but I think it was a critical life moment where I think there was a big decision. Was I going to get stuck here forever or not? And that trip just shook me up so much that I think because of all the personal therapy work I'd done before, I almost didn't have a choice but to open up to it and learn from it.
Yeah, you got corner.
I pretty much got cornered. My wife had been, I mean, she can tell you, but she'd been trying to kind of shake me for a long time. And it was finally my son, Nathan, who, because he was a young buck, age 20, he's like, Dad, come on, Dad. You know, he helped with that transformation in a way that Cecilia couldn't. Now, that's early stuff. But if you want to look at it as a sort of beginning of a repair, you could say, I don't know if that's the right word, to our relationship, a me becoming more real. And therefore, Cecilia saying, oh, okay, you're back to being interesting. I think I'll hang
Mhm.
around with you
Mhm.
because there was that choice for her that she can talk about. Am I going to continue with this guy or not? And I think because of that, I think that allowed us then to make future plans later on as a couple that I don't think would have happened otherwise.
So tell me about
I
that.
don't think
Yeah, tell me
that.
about that. I want you to dig into that. What were you seeing in him that was less than his authentic self, but you knew was still there, and kind of what was your mindset?
So I think there is different versions of our story out there, but at the core, we're all same type of humans. Our journeys are slightly different, but the lessons are all for us to take advantage or not. When you get married, when you're young, you see the free spirit, the fun aspect of yourself, and then life happens. You get married, you buy houses, you open businesses, you have children. All the responsibility can kind of sometimes erode a little bit of the fun aspect of life. Sometimes you can get a little lost or create coping mechanisms to kind of keep going. You buy into those coping mechanisms and you think those facades define you. And I think that was what was happening for Josh. He kept buying into, if I play this role, things will get better. Or if I say I am that, it is that. And we are all very smart, intuitive people. And you know who's genuine and who's not. Whether you nail it or not, inside, you kind of had that perception. And what kept me going is because I knew the person I married is still there. The loving, sweet, kind heart person was there with all these extra layers. And I wanted him to shed those. But my job wasn't to fix him. My job was to own my power and then say, these are your two choices. Either you see what I'm attracted, and what I'm not attracted in, you can stay or leave. But these are my choices. And I no longer have to think about raising a family because the boys were leaving. We're finally empty nesting, and I didn't have to hold the family together. And this was our opportunity to take a look and clean house, be free, no children, no pressures. We lived our lives already, kind of as a family. And now this was the chance
Reinvent.
to reinvent.
Well,
Was that
that's excellent, and it tees up so many things that I have questions for because it's one of the things and also, by the way, just being fully transparent, one of the reasons why your videos and the moves you've made, both whenever you guys were in Oregon, correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
I wanna talk about remodeling that gorgeous home that looked like it was in a remote it looked like kinda like my dreamscape,
Yeah.
but one of the things
It was our dreamscape.
it was so gorgeous. A lot of the things that Josh has gone through, I mean, I find myself many times I mean, I talk about it on this podcast a lot, kinda like what, Carl Jung calls the shadow that we keep suppressed, and falling into the image that both others kind of that we build, that people think that's who you are, and Josh, I can totally resonate with successful business guy. This is who you are. You're living the American dream, whatever the case may be, but deep down, you're like, "Yeah, I mean, on paper, everything looks amazing, but
Mhm.
it's really not who I am." And it's a scary, scary proposition when you're faced with everything you thought you were building and had yielded the rewards for it. All of a sudden, you realize, "Hey, I don't want any of it. There's something completely different out there." But then I don't know if this is what your case was that led to you guys becoming expatriates over to France or whatever. But for me, a lot of times it's like, so what? So now what? What do I do? If this person I've been for all these years isn't really a reflection of who I am deep down, will the person that comes out that really is who I am and I'm fulfilling these things, is there value to it? Can I make a living? The simple question, can I make a living? Will my wife approve of it? All these different things. So just
Mhm.
so that the listener knows transparently why I really want to have this conversation, it's not just a cool story about you guys up and leaving the United States and moving overseas. That's awesome. That is a cool, but it's so much deeper than that. And I get the sense from your videos and your content that there's something so much deeper to this story. So,
Yes.
putting that commentary aside, let's go back to
Yeah.
Oregon. So, like, when you guys decided to remodel that fantastic home, was that after the boys had left, or was that like while they were still there?
Into school.
Okay.
What happened is, so we left California, and this was one of the big steps on our journey, is we left family. The boys were little, they were 5 and 7, and we decided we'd had enough. And because we didn't have the right emotional tools that we learned later on in Oregon, our first line of attack, so to speak, Cecilia's actually, not mine. She brought it to me. She's like, let's leave. If we cannot, if our parents, our families are being overbearing, you
They were
know,
suffocating.
and we don't know what else to do. Let's leave. I mean, there are things looking back we could have done, but at the time it was like, let's just up and leave. So we sell the house at the peak of the market, which helped a lot. This was in 2004.
Mhm.
And we go to Oregon where we end up meeting two key things happen for me that were just magical. The biggest was that we end up working with people doing emotional work that's very much feeling work, very much internal, spiritual, connecting with your guidance work that's so impossible to explain in words. Connecting with those people, we're still working with a guy to this day on a weekly basis.
But I want to say that
Mhm.
what propelled that searching for that kind of spiritual learning was we were having marital issues after I moved from California to Oregon. Now we had space away from family so we can focus on us. And there were a few things not resonating between the two of us. The problem is not in the marriage. The problem is you have to work individually. If you want to work on your marriage, you have to work in your individual self because your answers don't come, the answers have to come from your own personal realizations about yourself. You don't fix your partner, you don't fix the marriage, you work on yourself.
So I want to say, Jason, that what's interesting, if you fast forward to 2018, 19, 20, the things that I said about myself that I was going through emotionally, and the things that Cecilia said to you that she was going through about the marriage and what to do, those were independent things. We were not having direct conversations. We were not at that point, after 20 years of counseling, doing marriage counseling. This was direct work with this person, one on one, working on our shit. You find out, you really do. If you get into this type of work, it is always and only about yourself. And that's why it's hard to use the word therapy because there's so many forms of therapy. This work is very much about you, your life, your feelings,
Your
and,
beliefs,
and the full
because,
package that's
right.
you on a spiritual level, on a human level, and everything in between.
You have to dismantle all these beliefs you have from growing up, what your family stamps on you, what society stamps on you. All of it has to be dismantled because you cannot know who you are if you're still attached to what you think or what you're being told.
I could not agree more. One of the things that's so hard to explain about my ultimate goal for this show, which has evolved over the last 7 years that I've done it, the whole improve always and always mantra. Now, I don't wanna be wrapped into, not that there's anything wrong with, like, Tony Robbins. I think Tony Robbins does amazing work. Any of these
Mhm.
typical kind of self-improvement folks that, because I guess if you had to categorize the Jason Wright Show, it would be for self-improvement. One of the things that I really want is exactly what you guys are talking about. It's kinda like the old adage that's always used. If you're on an airplane, they always tell you, in the case of a crash, put your mask on first. You cannot help anybody else and be as useful to others until you save
Mhm.
yourself. And that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I always talk about on this show. It's about improving yourself to be prepared to be the best version of yourself emotionally. It had to be equipped to handle the struggles, the hard conversations, the bold moves like remodeling a house, moving to Portugal, all these that you have to have yourself truly ready for those sorts of things. And you're right, you're never going to change anyone else. It took me for years to realize that
Yeah.
the only person in this world that I have ultimate control over is Jason Wright. That really resonates with me. So, where I want to back up a little bit, what you guys have described is something that so many other couples in this day and age in particular would never have worked that hard after going through, it sounds like, years of taking the proactive steps to counseling. You're dealing with family issues. It sounds like you guys stuck it out and you were willing to come to at some point say, hey, we're not just going to take the easy way out. The boys are older, they're out of the house. So, Josh, you go your way. Cecilia, you go your way. We're out. You guys stayed in the game. And now this is what I love. And I know we're going to get to this, but at the end of this story, now, I mean, it's nowhere near the end, but where we are, what caused you guys to get on my radar, staying together and working on these things, now you're living a life that most people would only dream of. And the cool thing is, and again, I want to get into this. and I'm not going to bash America and all these things. I'm a fifth generation Texan. I love Texas. I love America. I love it all. But look, we're steeped in consumerism and material and all this thing. It's not as much about experience. There's so many things that we could go into. I mean, if I think the Matrix was invented in America, and
Right.
so I'll just leave it at that. But you guys have stepped out of that together and are living a rich life that has nothing to do with what most people on Instagram and stuff think is a good life.
Yeah.
You guys are really getting the return on experiences, as my buddy Ryan McKenzie says. So what was it that kept you guys? Is it something from your background? Was it something? What did those overbearing parents or family, did they have some influence on, hey, you guys, where did that come from that you guys just weren't willing to stop doing the work together to make sure this couple, you continued on as a couple?
That's a really good question. I think the theme, because you're making me look at my life again, the span of my life. I think when Cecilia and I met, and I'm going to talk about this in my next video, there was curiosity from the get-go. We're looking for stuff. We were looking for it in art. We later looked for it in books, in Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and the Landmark Forum. We were hungry. That allowed us, when we moved to Oregon, to look for answers. That started with marriage counseling and ended up being individual work that we've done now since for 25 years.
Mhm.
Later on in 2018, stuff shows up. It's another phase in life, and we work through that. By 21, we're making plans. We're starting to see life differently because the boys are leaving. We explored Portugal. I think that that's what it's been about. It's been about a curiosity to learn more. There's obviously a great deal of love between us. It's not anything we wanted to give up per se. We always say that if we had broken up, we'd be excellent friends because love is there. That's irreplaceable. That's never going away. But as a team, even to this day, I just released a video a few videos ago. Please make the remodel stop, right? I go crazy around the remodeling we're doing. We're doing it again. And I live in the house while it's happening. So I'm learning my own personal stuff around what does it mean to have noise and interruptions and not all the things that I want all the time. And it's just, and at the same time, it's Cecilia's dream. It's her canvas. She's doing all these things she wants. So we're renegotiating. So, and that's in the mix of having said, okay, we're leaving the US, we're going to Europe, we're going on an adventure. It's that craving for more that, I don't know, we ask a lot of questions. We're people that are always asking questions. Um,
We are
we
extremely
access our
curious.
guidance now more than ever. We're always asking questions of our higher selves. I don't know. There's a hunger that I don't know how to explain. If you believe in multiple lifetimes, we came into this lifetime in this position to want more, to question more, to search more, and that's what I think has kept us together and thriving.
I want to add to that, if that's okay.
Sure.
I think for me, all along is a deep sense of we are here committed to grow as people. And as long as he kept trying, I couldn't abandon him as my partner because I saw effort on his end, whether he was getting it or not, it didn't matter for me. I'm like, I see effort, we're playing, we'll keep going. That's very important. The minute somebody gets, they withdraw or they get, you know, complacent, I question more.
Yeah.
But I saw effort, and that to me carries courage. Courage is super important to me. Courage to really want to grow, to really want to learn. We're here on this earth, and it's so fast. It happens so fast. You realize that, especially after raising kids, it's like, oh my God, where did the time go? And I'm in a hurry to get as much as I can about myself. And I'm so not what I am wearing, which is this body. I am way more, and my potential is so much bigger. But it took me up to this point to realize that, to be comfortable in my own skin. I don't need anything. I want these people around me, but I don't need anybody. That takes work and effort to be in that space.
100%. And that's so well said. And, I just want to just say real quickly. So I did a video not too long ago that I am an infinitely better man because of my wife. I mean, and it's for so many of the reasons why you just articulated, Cecilia, is that I know that, and I always say exactly what you said about my wife is that she's not with me because she needs me. It's because she truly wants me. She wants the partnership and the teamwork that we have. We complement each other so much that we're much better people together than we would be independently. Bless you for being such an incredible teammate to Josh and to see that, to be able to see in him that at least he's still the guy that I love. He's trying, there's courage, and that's enough for me to continue on. I think that is so commendable to you and what an example you guys are as a couple, again, especially in this day and age. And then the thing is, now let's get into this. In addition to you guys having these struggles that every couple has, you guys take on some things that would demolish a lot of marriages, remodeling the house, moving to Portugal. And then I can't wait to hear how many Airbnbs when you guys are exploring where you're going to go to Europe and just the headaches. And then you decide to start all these new things. I mean, most people would just crumble. Most relationships would never be. Most couples come back from a trip to Europe not talking to each other. And you guys are doing all these things. So it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Let's go back to Oregon where you remodeled this amazing home. But then something made you guys decide you were out. Now, Josh, you kind of touched on it and speak freely here. I don't care. There's no judgment. I don't care if it's politics. I don't care if it's people. I don't care but withhold whatever. It's your conversation. What
Yeah.
was it that made you just decide, I've had enough, I'm out? Because I mean, I've struggled with a lot of that too. So I just kind of like to know what was it that made you say, even after having this, what was our dream home in America, I'm out. I want to go do something.
Yeah, the house remodel was 5 years from the point of buying the house. So I could tell you some of
Oh
the
boy.
craziness that happened
Oh,
before. I sold what was at the time we've run agencies together.
Mhm.
At the time I was sort of running this business and we sold it, and the money we had was, well, we also refinanced the home we were living in. So we thought we had all this extra money for any of a number of things, right? So we decided we were tired of where we were living at the time. It was a very claustrophobic, sort of cul-de-sac type setting in West Lynn, Oregon, where we had bought our first home. And we were ready to get some land, look at a nice home. So we ended up finding this one property. Cecilia found it. Actually, it's an interesting story because we had given up looking. And one night she is the type that she's so persistent. She gets back online. She finds this property. She's like, Josh, look at this. I'm like, didn't we say we weren't looking? And she's like, well, I found this. I look, I'm like, it looks pretty decent. We go the next day and we fall in love with this foresty area,
I mean, it was dreamy.
old home. And we get into this conversation about remodeling it.
Now,
Back and forth.
the house was a tear down, though. And we're like very naive about remodeling.
So it's not like we had the money, as it turns out, to go in and tackle it
Well,
and
we
be
had
done.
enough, or we thought we had
We
enough.
thought, but what happened was the sale of my business and some of the activity in her store that she opened a boutique for women. It had generated taxes. We had a huge tax bill. So the refi money went pretty much almost to the penny to the government, something we didn't plan properly. So we kind of got screwed. So it took a while before we sold the house that we were living in while owning that plot of land already, put in some money. And then after that, it was stop and go. For 5 years, it was stop and go, trying to get to the next stage of the house. It was a long, hard process where I felt I can't keep up. I talk about this in one of my videos. I cannot keep up. It's not my personality. I'm not made for this. And I didn't have enough of myself or tools to be able to
Withstand.
embrace the suck, as they say, right?
Mhm.
I didn't have the muscle. While Cecilia was just the fear monster that she is, and she carried that project for 5 years with two young boys, running her store while I'm home trying to revive my next company or our next company. It was a hell mess that nobody knows about. I mean, unless you watch that video, and you take in what I'm trying to
I think
say.
one day we need to tell that
I
story
mean,
because it's
it was an
unbelievable.
incredible 5 year process. And then we get in, and there's still stuff to do. So it took another year or two to finish it.
This house remodel put our marriage to the test for sure, but it really took me to the edge with him. But I kept it together because I wanted the family to stay together. But it created all that resentment towards Josh that
Yeah.
then we had to work out once the boys left.
Yeah.
So is that making all
Oh,
sense?
So
And
it's built in a way we enjoy 9 or 10 years of that property. It was great. The new business took off. We were making money, but things had built up. There was residue up to 2018 when I go off on this thing and I get my ass kicked. And she's like, good, good. Now we're talking. And I come back to a good year and a half of intense emotional work where I'm just breaking down into nothing. I'm like, us guys, right? We want the image of the husband, the dad,
the hero.
the hero who just kicks ass. I did everything for my family and everyone recognizes it and I'm validated.
yep.
I was a puddle of poop. I don't know what even to call myself. I was just this destroyed, undone human being. And from that, I was able to find this new me that could rise up,
And that's what I liked.
you know?
That's what I like. Him taking the courage to own it, because once you own it, then you can, build yourself back up. It's okay. I didn't marry an image. I married this amazing, sweet person that wasn't shining through because he was all caught up on how he would look, which I don't care about.
Yeah. So I want to ask
Josh,
you a question.
just real quick, Josh,
Yeah.
we are brothers from another mother, my man. It is crazy.
I know I'm sharing my story. You're gonna have to tell me your story.
You're sharing it basically. Just replace Jason with Josh Bernstein, and dude, it's there. It's crazy. Continue.
It's amazing how people have resonated to a lot of what I've said or Cecilia. I mean,
Which
Cecilia,
I haven't covered. I just started my channel, but one thing that I think in this whole marital thing took me back to unresolved issues growing up.
Mm.
So that was the parallel and the gift I received by being in this situation with Josh, which forced me to deal with a lot of childhood trauma.
Mm.
yeah, which is really where a lot of it originates.
Sure.
Life is a gift. You are here giving gifts, so you take advantage. Great place to be is to know things don't happen to you, things happen for you. It's for your growth, for your empowerment. And I believe it. When you see it from that perspective, you are empowered.
100%. 100%. That's one of the things.
Yes,
Dude,
it hurts.
I got real into Viktor Frankl's work and logotherapy at one point. I actually wrote a book that was inspired. It's a parable essentially. Whenever you start to realize that all the bad that happens to you, it's like, okay, what is the lesson in this? How is this going to help me grow as a human being? I used to be that kind of woe is me, why me, why me? I'm a Christian. I'm a believer due to my childhood and my view of my father, which I equated with my heavenly father. I would take everything bad as punishment. And the idea that
Same.
God is punishing me. And then I would be like, what did I do wrong? I was kind of like in the Bible, Job, what have I done? Or his friends going, all right, you did something bad, dude. This wouldn't be happening. But then when you start to realize these, going back to other forms of psychology that Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. There's a lesson. There's something in it to be learned. Should you realize that everything
Mhm.
is happening, we're all part of this universe moving in kind of like one motion. It's like a river. If a river comes as a boulder, then the river goes around the boulder and just continues on. But you
Right.
figure out
Right.
how to make that work for you. Now, just
Yeah.
because I can say that doesn't mean I always practice it. I still get pissed and depressed and frustrated and all that. But I get that more than ever. And Cecilia, I'm glad you bring it up because it has been life changing for me. It has really, truly and also it kind of makes you, I don't know, this may sound a little bit trite, but it kind of is, it leads to a gaming of life, if you will.
Yeah.
Everything is
Yeah.
so do or die. It's just, okay, this is kind of the game we're in.
Yeah.
Sure. I
Yeah.
love that.
You know what? This leads up to, because I know you're curious, what sort of led up to wanting to leave the US.
Yeah.
And I like that sort of analogy of the water going around the boulder, right? It just, life flows and we realized that we could get stuck in this. We've called it different things. She called it a golden cage the other day in her video that's about to come out. And it was like that. It was this beautiful, perfect home. We had to sort of, there was an opportunity, right? We were in this home that was perfect. It was everything we ever had dreamed of for a home. It was equipped with everything,
Custom
every
made.
last tool and thing you could ever need. And then, but we realized, I mean, we just flat out realized, okay, the boys are gone. We don't love Portland. We lost our love for Portland. It was there 20 years before when we got there. It just became a different city. There wasn't access to things like we would have liked the way that you have here in Europe. Families in
Yeah.
California, we're not around family. We don't have friends. Why are we here? And so the catalyst for that was going to Portugal because Nathan, our oldest, had insisted. So we go with our youngest. We all see it and we're like, this is great. We fell in love with the country and we're like, let's give it a shot. We get back home excited and shortly thereafter put the house on the market. It was like that. It was this very impulsive decision, but
Calculated
you've
too.
got your partner that's in agreement
Yeah.
and it's feeling right. Right.
Mhm.
And I had to grieve the house. I mean, I'm leaving a house that I pour my heart to. And that's important to, I was consciously grieving the house and saying, I thank you for your beauty, for what you gave us, but I need to move on.
Yeah.
I need to go live my life.
Yeah. Josh, and it might be this next video because the golden cage, because it sounds to me like I can maybe I'm assuming wrong, but when you say that, did you find that that house had become a golden cage? And part of the thing that I think about America a lot of times, it's literally what is the best parts of America tend to be the worst parts of America for we as growing, evolving human beings. In that I love our modern conveniences and I wouldn't give them up. I love the 10-cent calorie that fast food can offer us, but we also know what that can do to us. I love all these conveniences where, one time I nearly died on the side of a mountain in China, I mean, rural area. And I remember coming back and thinking it would be really hard to just be plucked anywhere in America and not eventually be rescued or be able to get out of it. Where I was, I saw what it was like to be no phones, no airplanes flying over, no park rangers. And I don't want to have to go through that experience again, but I'm so grateful for that struggle and that fear and that sense of survival. America gets so comfortable and so convenient to where and then we start to bitch and complain about problems that a lot of the world would give anything to be able to have the luxury to complain about. And so it's almost like the things that people love the most about America. And again, I do love our country. I'm not going to be an America basher anymore that I would be I'm not going to bash anything. But I think that like you said, the house had everything. We lose, and when you don't have struggle, then you lose that what you call adventure. You don't, and then whenever you put a couple together to have to struggle towards something together, which to me that is the most awesome part of a relationship. And it's also just kind of sidebar. My wife, she has a retail boutique. It's a children's boutique that's been here in Tyler now for nearly 14 years. It's her blood, sweat, and tears. She runs it, and I'm the one that kind of does our other businesses, the things that people don't see and everything. I got out of one business too soon. I probably didn't do as well. I didn't scale it and get what I should have for it. Now here I am. What do I do next? And it's just so I get all that. But was
Yeah.
that kind of where you guys were getting with that idea that it was almost like too convenient, not enough adventure, just because you had achieved everything you wanted to. It's like kind of
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was too comfortable.
yep.
It was
Mhm.
too comfortable.
Boring.
We were bored. We had a favorite Mexican restaurant we'd go to once, twice a week. It was like, what else is there to do?
Mhm.
And to travel to Europe,
It's
it was far. It was a long
far.
trek to go to Europe, to Asia. And then Nathan had already left for Paris, right? He left for France a few years before. And our youngest, when he saw Portugal, he's like, I'm moving. I'm moving with a couple of my friends.
Yeah.
Do check out Cecilia's next video because it
I'm
is
talking all about that.
her explanation of leaving the US and moving to Europe.
Okay.
I think she does a great job in her own words. And so with the boys leaving, the question became, do we go to Europe do we go to Canada maybe? What do we do? And again, after seeing Portugal and giving that a shot, it's like, okay, we're Portugal bound. And of course, the story continues in that we're preparing, we're scouting. We're like, okay, learning about the north, the south, etc. We have our paperwork that we're preparing to go to the US to submit in July of 22. And days later, after going into Mexico, the plan was to wait it out for 2 months in Mexico till the Portuguese visas were ready. Days within being in Mexico in Tulum, we're talking to Nathan on the phone, and there's a shot of that in one of my early videos where we're like, you know what? It's not Portugal. It is not Portugal. It's not. Why fool ourselves?
I'm always the instigator. I start saying, we seem to be talking a lot about France,
Yeah,
not about
and
Portugal.
I'm like, you're right. And she's like, she tells me to this day, she was shocked that I said that I
Yes.
agreed because she thought I would.
Because I'm more of like the wild card, and Josh tends to be like, "Whoa, let's think it through,"
Yeah.
right? But he said yes right away.
It was almost like thank you for saying that for me. It was like, yes, I agree, which meant we had to then process again for submitting to the French government for our visas, which we did. We ended up in Houston 2 months later, submitting. A week, 10 days later, we had our visas after a lot of anxiety waiting to hear
Oh
back.
my God.
That's all documented.
Yep.
And we're Paris bound. We're back to Paris on our way to, eventually we went to Portugal to close out business, came back to France, and then started scouting.
So
But it was this just heck of an adventure that I don't know how to explain the excitement.
And now we're dealing with the new settling. So now we're like, okay, so we're getting settled. Now it's routine again. How do we stay engaged? What's important to us? So this is
yeah, about
ongoing.
an hour outside of Paris, is that right? Or
Yes.
We're an hour southeast of Paris. You get to the local station, it's 50 minutes to the list. Yeah.
It's incredible that to live where we live, so close to the most picturesque,
Incredible city.
incredible city.
I mean, it's just, they were not taking it like, again, back to what Celia was saying, it gets routine, right? You get into a routine. You're like, why aren't we going every
That
other
of-
week
yeah.
for the day to Paris to have some amazing food and then
Yeah.
come back?
yeah.
You get settled, and it's resisting that settled feeling that makes you got to get bored with yourself,
Yeah.
and you got to question, what can I do? And then you got to like take action,
That
right?
I agree, and it's one of the things that Jim and we have a very both of our girls are older, they're out of college and doing their own thing, and so we do have a lot of time and a lot of freedom, and that's why we can think about doing something kind of like what you guys have done. And we talk about a lot. We live in a little bubble, and our store that I mentioned is about 3 miles from our home. So we're either 3 miles from home or 3,000 miles from home, rarely in between.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
it just becomes Groundhog Day. And there's some beauty to that. I love the fact that it's very routine, very safe and low stress. But and we love when we do travel. That's where she and I were on the same page. We love really, and again, it doesn't have to be like different foods, finding cool places, and and we love to go find really quaint coffee shops and just experience.
We are a lot alike.
Love-
You
Yes.
guys are twins.
I saw you followed your therapist's advice and went out and had some coffee and started talking to people. And
Yeah, and I did it. I did.
so this studio is outside of my home. I was for so long. If I didn't do this, Josh, I would never leave my house. I'm like, I'm not leaving. Nope, I'm good.
Can I tell you something really funny? I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but Cecilia can be home forever, for days and days on end.
COVID was the best thing. Of course not. I
It-
hated people getting sick, but it was
Yeah.
the best thing for my personality.
Same.
Trap me in the house.
I
force
enjoyed
me.
it too, but I have to get out every once in a while because otherwise I do go cuckoo. I'm the guy who drives. I got my driver license here. She hasn't yet.
Yep.
And
Well-
she gets really concerned with driving.
Mhm.
It's not a comfortable thing for Cecilia. So I'm the one who gets out and does things. But she at times does not leave home for days on end, which if that works for you and you can wait till the next trip to get out of the house, fine. But you got to know yourself and you got to do
Yeah.
what's right for yourself.
Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of a troublesome mix of the two of you guys because I am a recluse. I'll stay in the house, but also that's whenever my head starts really jacking with me being all by myself, kind of in the forest. I start thinking of all the things I'm not doing. And there is a sense of, there's a therapeutic sense of getting out and getting around other people and realizing, oh, wait a minute, there's a whole other world out here that I'm not even seeing and interacting with. I should probably give a shot every once in a while. I want to ask you
Yeah.
one quick question is like, because you just answered it in a way. The deal with Portugal, because I'd always heard Portugal is so amazing. I have not been to Portugal. I want to go to visit. I watched the video where you guys went through having to get the money out in stages and trying to all those things.
That was nuts.
That
So you're curious, why not Portugal, right? I mean,
yeah,
is that
exactly. And that kind of scared me. I was like, oh wow, what if they hadn't got all their money out? But so it wasn't, it sounds to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds to me like it wasn't that there was something in Portugal that was just like, oh my gosh, we could never live here. But there was just something more appealing to France that said, okay, if we're going to go anywhere, why would we not choose this over this? Do I have that right?
Yes.
pretty much? I think Portugal, and I don't want to say anything negative about Portugal because Portugal is the society, the way they work is how they work.
Yeah.
They're very easygoing people. They're some of the probably the loveliest people
Yeah.
I've ever met. Every Uber driver, every anybody anywhere, they're just really sweet people. I think it's just a slower pace. Things for Americans, especially, it just feels extra slow, slow motion. And you're like, we were looking for things like food, access to things, types of homes. Nothing was clicking for us.
Yep.
It just wasn't. And like you said, it was the appeal of having seen Paris and going, well, we saw that, and that is really enticing. That's worth exploring. And so we
There
went
were
for
a
it
few
without
other
knowing.
things. The food in France is more to our
Yeah.
liking. Portuguese food is delicious, and there's a lot of foreigners opening Italian restaurants. But the food in France was to us a little bit higher level, just for our taste.
Yep.
And the other thing, banking really stressed me out. In Portugal, they're very relaxed and inconsistent. It doesn't matter if it is a well known bank, they might open late, they might close early, they might not open. And you're like, but this is a bank. And they're like if that is what happens in a bank, I can't imagine anything else.
Yeah.
And I have a warning for people: just be careful with where you put your money, and then know have an exit plan if you need to pull it out. How you're going to do that? Because seriously, I was pulling money at the limit each day
Yeah.
from each of our accounts until I depleted, and it was like for a month. I was
Yeah.
pulling daily max amounts. It
Because
was
the
just
person we were assigned would not give us the time or day. Not
yeah.
the other thing I didn't like about Portugal is that was just personal, extremely oriented to tourism. There is such a heaviness catered to tourism. All the areas that are beautiful, it's tourist galore.
Oh,
Like it's so that was our a little bit our problem too.
okay. So you decide to make France home somewhere in France at this point. Now,
Yeah.
imagine you're back. I know you've done this in the videos remarkably well, but people that are listening to this episode, they're hearing this for the first time. Probably anyone that's gone from US to Paris because they wanted to, not because of a relocation for work or something like that. So take us back and tell us like some of the things you would do differently to short circuit it. How long did it take to get to where you guys are right now, where you are settled in, you're remodeling a home in France, south of Paris, and that's where it sounds like you're going to be for a little while. How long from the time you decided, even take it from Portugal to now say, okay, France is going to be our home. We're going to pick a spot. How long did it take from that decision to where you guys are right now? And any pitfalls that you would tell people right now, if you're even like telling Coach Jimlin and I, because we're seriously considering this. And I want to,
Yeah.
and then in a minute, I want to tell you some of the places we're looking at to see what you guys think about it and kind of give me some advice. But kind of what did that timeline look like?
Okay.
Do
Who
you want
goes
to
on
give
there?
it a stab?
This one I might have to explain because I was the one in charge of figuring out the area where we should look.
Because again, she is this beast when it comes to research.
Yeah.
I don't know how you are, but I lose patience within 5 minutes.
Same.
I don't have, maybe I don't want to, but I just don't have this stamina that she has
So we
Well,
decided to explore not too far from Paris because Paris is where our son lives. And also, it's a fantastic city with the most amount of museums, definitely something important to us, and restaurants. So we're like, okay, let's see what is it like to live maybe 2 to 3 hours away and then see closer. We went as far as possible, and we knew that towards Normandy, the coast,
Mhm.
would be possibly interesting to us, based on my visual research. So we took a road trip to Normandy, and we stopped at the most charming villages. And on the way to the coast, we explore a little bit the coast, and then our way back through a different path. And we figure out that the coast wasn't quite right. Here in France, the coast, again, a lot of tourism. It attracts also funny characters. So you either have a lot of wealth or funny characters. So we didn't see ourselves in either camp. So we're like, okay, this did not work out towards Normandy. What do we do next? And the two of us were trying to be open minded. We were not going to necessarily go to the countryside without really exploring, could we live in a European city? And we stayed in multiple different spots with different amount of density throughout Paris, and we kept going back to needing space. So, given that data, that for us greenery and space was important, I started exploring, doing research, the surroundings of the south and the east of France, a little bit the west too, but the west gets more congested. So that's why we stayed away from the west. It was more
but you're
this
talking not the south of France, but the south of
south
Paris.
of
So not
Paris.
going all the way to the south, but on the
Yeah,
perimeter.
not provide.
Reading a lot of blogs of most popular, most beautiful villages. And I found multiple blogs that brought up this particular area, we call this Les Yvelines. So I looked for an Airbnb in Montfort-la-Maurie, which is a stunning, stunning little village,
So now we're talking east of Paris,
southwest.
about an hour.
We explored the whole 1 hour drive from that particular, we kept looking around
Mhm,
there, and
mhm.
we fell in love with it, but so does Parisians. So it became a really difficult section to find what we were looking for our budget. And what I mean budget, we had to buy our house cash
Yep.
because the type of visa we have doesn't permit you to work. If you don't work, the bank won't lend you.
Yep.
So after we decided which sector we liked and we tried to embed ourselves in it, and we tried it for 4 months, we realized we had to expand even further. So I started looking more south and a little bit more east, expanding my areas. And I came upon this house. I showed it to Josh, but Josh wanted to really stay where we were at because in that area, in Les Yvelines, the Gros Grove and Montfort-la-Maurie, there is a market that we fell in love with, a high-end market with gourmet. It's a gourmet supermarket.
We miss it to this day. It was an
We talk
amazing
about it
place to
all
shop
the
in.
time.
Yeah.
And so because food is so important to us, it was this I
Attachment that we
attachment.
had.
Yeah, but I knew as the months were progressing, 4, 5 months in, we were staying at this little cottage Airbnb setup with this lovely woman and her son, and we were going nowhere. We were getting
Yeah.
depressed. It was a very depressive kind of setting. So
And the way I did is I would use the little guy from the Google Maps and drop him. I would spend hours exploring villages all throughout. And then when I would find something that would look cute, I would Google the name and I would do research how many people live there, what's the income per household, just to have an idea of
Yeah.
demographics. And then I found this house. We didn't know much about this area, so we decided to take a trip This is from the civilians, we're like an hour and a half away drive.
From here to there?
Yeah,
Oh, it's a good, no,
two
it's
hours
more, a couple
maybe.
hours. Yeah, a couple.
So we took a trip. We stayed in an Airbnb. We explored and we liked it, but I didn't know much about it. It's a little bit more farming. There's more farm, which has its own charm, but there's a lot of forest. And it has a ton of little villages where you have 200 inhabitants, 900 inhabitants, and that makes it very unique.
And old school.
I mean, people still pay with checks at the
Oh,
supermarket.
wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's
One of the concerns was access to food, restaurants. And so you're not going to find all the flavors of the world around here. You have to go to Paris. We found a few restaurants in bigger towns nearby, which gives us some hope and we have access to some things. You have all the amenities if you drive a bit of a distance.
But the big
Uh,
selling point is how easy it is to go to Paris. I mean, and the train station that is near our house is very clean, very easy to hop in and hop out. So that was definitely the selling point for this house. It's in a very cute village. We drive 15 minutes to the station. We take our 15-minute train and we're in the center of Paris.
Okay.
I would say persistence was huge. And to give you the timeline you were asking, we started that process a little over 2 years ago. So October of 22,
So it took us a year to find a house.
by April, May, we're already starting to get things in motion. In spite of all she said, it happened fairly fast. And now we've been here since July 2nd, her birthday.
And how did you guys go about working with a real estate agent? How did you guys go
Yeah.
about being able to get with a reputable agent that could show you homes? You could establish some sort of, how did that work?
It's
That-
wacky. It's
No, that is
very
not
wacky.
how it works.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, unlike United States, you can go call. You have to search for houses, and there is not a one location where there are. You have to find agencies that represent the areas that you're looking for.
Okay.
And there is sometimes one agency has this house and another agency has a different house. So you have to contact them all.
Oh God.
It is
So this house is represented by
three
So
agencies.
Cecilia, using her inner guidance,
I picked the one
picked the
guy.
one guy who ended up being a wonderful
Wonderful.
agent who walked us through the whole process, was super patient with our lack of French.
But you don't go with a realtor. You can, it's an unusual thing. You as an individual contact the representing person of the house. You don't usually you don't work with an agent.
Okay.
But
that-
again, you can pay money to work with someone who's
It's
going
rare.
to represent you. We didn't want to spend the money. We wanted to have more of the control. But then if you do that, you got to play the game. You got to be patient because you're going to be talking to a lot of people. We just got a call, Jason, 2 days ago from our searching a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Like, some places don't get back to you. They, employees change and they don't stay up to date. It's all the communication can be really wacky, but you have to be insistent, and they prefer the phone.
I would say
The phone or in-person meetings, they prefer that.
one thing you have to have in one of the two partners is tenacity.
Mm.
One of the two of you has to be extremely tenacious, and that would be me.
That's my wife for sure. Jillian. Whew,
And she's fearless when it comes to French. She would pick up the phone, and then she would give me the phone because
I'm like, just help.
my French has always been just slightly better. And
Better.
she'd be like, "Can you talk to them?" I'm like, "No, I can't." So you text them or you email. Typically you're gonna get a call back, right? Or if you go see them in person, that makes a huge difference. So
That's another thing. You in Europe, doesn't matter which country, in Europe, they are still very old school. Is phone or in person? They don't like texting.
and the countryside can be different than the city. So it depends on where you're living. So we're saying things that are very countryside specific.
Yeah.
Yes,
The way
Paris
they
is
talk,
different.
the way they handle themselves is a different mode of life than in the city. So you kind of have to,
In fact,
you have to adapt. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to play according to the local rules. People think They've seen my videos. They think that we're trying to force a system
No.
to fit us. We're not trying to force a system.
Yeah,
We come with our ways, our tendencies, but we have been as adaptive as we,
Mhm.
because if you don't, you suffer. You're going to work against the current, and it's going to
Plus,
hurt you more than anything.
we want to become embedded in the
yeah,
culture, but that takes time. And it's very different when you're doing it young than when you're doing it on our age, because when you're young, you're way more social.
sure.
We're way more introverted now than, we do such personal work that, we don't talk to anyone.
I don't have friends, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm man, and again, I'm the same way. I kind of live on an island, probably more so than I should. I guess
Yeah.
now's as good a time as any, since we're kind of talking about the adventure. When does YouTube come into this? A
Yeah.
whole nother conversation on starting content
No,
creation, that sort of thing. But how does YouTube play into this? Because it seems like it's married this whole process so well.
it's certainly complemented everything we're doing, and it's created an income stream that at times has been great, and it's helped us. It's helped support our efforts. But YouTube shows up if you watch my very first video when I traveled with Nathan to Iceland.
Mm,
At the time, I was trying to figure out how to reinvent myself. What was I going to do? There was the business that we were running at the time, but what was I going to do with my life? Right. I wanted to get more creative. I wanted to explore myself creatively. Again, I was a guy who grew up writing poetry, writing music, all sorts of artistic things. So, how was I going to reinvent that? So, the trip with him
He pushed you, I would
allowed me
say.
to finally pull out my camera, deal with all the sort of discomforts around my son, especially because who's an incredible shooter. And at one point, he said, "Dad, you should start a YouTube channel. You should get out there and do your thing and bring it to the world." So I released that video, and at that point, we were leaving the U.S. And I'm like, "Okay, awesome! I have such great material
To
to
share.
document and share." I didn't know the lifetime of the channel.
No.
I still don't know the lifetime of the channel. I'm always wondering what's next. But leaving the US, getting rid of everything, just led one story to the next. And it became this thing that I was like, wow, I really enjoy doing this. It's really helping me exercise my creativity, my storytelling, apply everything that I had learned up to that point and push my boundaries, which I'm trying to do again now after 20, 21 videos. I'm looking at new ways of, what am I going to do?
That's another spiritual learning, because you are seeing yourself now outside of your perception of yourself, and you'll learn a lot about yourself. A lot. I had to get comfortable being on camera. In the beginning, I hated it, and now I'm extremely comfortable in front of the camera. I had to demystify how I thought I was coming across. And it's great. Again, another point of stretching your beliefs,
Yeah. 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 It's
So
allowing us now, Cecilia, as well, who is what, 4 or 5 videos in. It was her opportunity to say, well, we're doing all this stuff to the house, and people were hungry to see it
yeah.
and to know more. And she has so much to talk about when it comes to artistic endeavors, to life, spirituality. Why not start her own channel? And like she said, it's an avenue like your podcast to express yourself,
yeah,
to explore things that you
yeah.
wouldn't otherwise explore, to dare and be brave in ways that you normally wouldn't be. So it's been that, and it's been great. So it sort of just kind of happened. Really out of nowhere. It was not planned that we would do this and that it would pair up so well with our adventure and that it would all end up doing so well.
And I wanted to make sure we didn't add more noise out there, but maybe positive things. I wanted to balance out a little bit what I see that is not so conducive for people feeling better about themselves.
Well,
Um,
you guys have done an excellent job. That's one of the reasons why that's why when I reached out to you, Josh, it's like, I don't know how to put it into words, but dude, I'm not just interested in learning more about uprooting and moving to Europe. There's something more to you and your story that interests me, especially when you talked about getting healthy whenever you hit 50, really taking your health to another level, and then mindfulness and all these sorts of things that resonated with me because there's so much of the journey that I've been on, and this idea of self-improvement and trying to, I always, I started a while back what was called the Vitruvian Project, literally based kind of on Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, which was what he drew as to try to draw a perfectly proportioned human being. And I thought to myself, well, I'm never going to reach perfect proportion, but what would it look like from a figurative standpoint of, pursuing perfect proportion emotionally, spiritually, physically, relationally, just all these areas of life that a lot of times we just keep blind spots to. And I could just see that in what you guys were doing. Have you found that because what you're doing can be, I've got to believe, can be so stressful. I mean, I can't even, like, the things that scare me the most, like if I'm with you guys, if I have that house, I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, one, is the electrical grid stable? And then what if the power goes out? What if the toilet backs up? And all these different things that I know in the States, there's a whole list of plumbers I can get, but you're out in rural France, so I'd be scared of that. But again, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, Cecilia, realizing that all this is happening for me, if I say, well, okay, here's something we can document. Here's something that can make some content out
Yeah,
and share,
correct.
eases the pain.
You're right. That's how she sees it.
That's how
She
I see
sees
it.
it as improvements to the house, a better, nicer, lovelier lifestyle, content. Yes, but for me, it's they're invading my home. I have to go have these meetings in French on stuff that I'm not passionate about. I don't understand wiring and cabling and plumbing, and I get lost, right? So, what does my therapist say? You got to do that for 10 weeks. You're going to go up to bat and you're going to deal with the discomforts of these contractors. It's the only way to go up against these triggers and these obstacles is by doing it,
Yep,
right?
yep,
And thankfully, I know better, and I'm learning these tools, and I have someone to support me, my therapist, where if he says to do that, I know it's good for me.
yeah,
But talk about two perspectives, right? For me, it's this living hell if I let it be. For Cecilia, it's this wonderful playground that might be uncomfortable, but
It
it has
is.
all this value to it. And
When he gets dark, it's a challenge for me to speak up
Mhm.
and kind of because that's my thing. I tend to always please and make everybody happy, which is my non learning aspect. He challenges me on putting boundaries on, like, well, your attitude is despicable, or whatever I need to say, right?
I'm too little for her at times. She's too much for me at times. Again, couples, right? You're reflecting on each other. You see
oh,
yourself, and you're getting reactions to
But
you.
it
And
doesn't mean I shrink, and it doesn't mean you need to like overcompensate. It doesn't mean you have to change.
right. No, it's 100%.
but
No, no, no,
if
go
you're
ahead.
self-aware, you're working on yourself. So anyway, I think we
Exactly.
said enough.
It's so funny because you guys are so much like Jimlyn and I. I mean, I guess I'll retreat into to a dark place, and it's her that will bring me out of it. And the thing that causes her the most stress, I think, is trying to please everybody. As you know, Cecilia, whenever you have a retail business, you're customer facing. I'm sure you were probably obsessive about customer service and taking care of it. That's how
Yep.
Jimlyn has built it. That's how we compete with Amazon and these other places, is
Yeah.
because you're just not going to get the service from them that you will get from my wife and her team. I think what you guys have, I think you've got a self-improvement channel disguised as kind of a lifestyle channel. That's what I think. That's what's going on here.
I never saw it that way.
Nathan with his channel for a long time now, and now a younger son, Skylar, has his own channel too, doing amazing creative explorations and looking at aspects of life too. None of us likes doing any how to. Here's like 5 things to know about Portugal, 10 things to do if you're moving to the French countryside. We like to talk about ourselves,
Yep.
which can sound selfish and egotistical to some people,
But that's not
to
the
us.
energy,
But
right?
the energy is to express our experience. This is what we went through. This is our authentic storytelling. You do whatever you want with it. I mean,
Take
if it
whatever you,
inspires you,
yeah.
great. If not, you didn't learn anything. Not for you.
There's
You know.
something really there. And again, it is why. I mean, there's a ton. I mean, I've seen a ton of them since Jimlin and I have kind of toyed with this idea of buying a place in France or somewhere and doing what you guys have done. There's all kinds of content on exactly what you said. These people, they love to travel and they're travel agents or they're travel planners. They decide, oh, here's how we can get 1 million subscribers. And they tell you, 3 days in Sicily. Here's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yours, here's what I think yours did, and I say this as some definite encouragement. One, you're normal people that have done an extraordinary thing, and you tie into it that for somebody watching that like me, that it resonated with me because I do a lot of the same stuff, especially that you talk about, Josh, with
Right.
the mindfulness stuff. So I'm like, oh, and this isn't a guy telling me that this is how I need to get my life. He's not showing me his morning routine to be, which I've done those. I've talked about the ice baths and all the stuff, the fast.
I have no morning routine.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
But see, but yet you also tie all these tools. And so so what it does, to me, it gives an authenticity that
Mhm.
moving to France, remodeling the home, going on these big adventures, taking on these huge projects, those are almost just kind of like the artifacts of the work you're doing
Yes.
on yourself, which to
Yeah.
me is people that you see creating content of do this, do that, get fit and all this. Here's how you get, financially independent in 5 easy steps. Okay, that's cool, but why? What for? What?
Correct. Got it. You
Right.
so got it.
So I think what you guys are doing, it's so cool that
Mhm.
again, I think what all the cool adventures that you're doing, those are just artifacts of the fact that you're doing the stuff that it means to be a human on a much higher level, to really experience this life that you're right, Cecilia, you said it. It goes by like that. When I look at my young daughters who are 23 and 24 now and think, my gosh, where did that time go?
Yes.
And I think you guys have found a way to make an incredible adventure out of it, and I don't it is really inspiring to me.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
awesome.
Wow.
So great to hear.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that because we always wonder, I wonder what people are perceiving out of, but you got the message. You get it. So for us that's incredible.
But it's what I want to try to figure out how to do myself, and Jimla and I have talked about it, how because she's like you, Cecilia, she hates the camera. We do these goofy videos for Instagram for our store where I'm just a clown. I'm like it's literally like
Yeah.
Laurel and Hardy or the typical comedy team where I'm the clown, she's the straight man, and that's because she hates social media or hates videos or anything like that. I don't care.
Yes, yeah.
I'll make a fool of myself. I have no inhibitions. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
I want to find something we can do together. We both love coffee. We love travel. We love experiences. And so I'm trying to figure that out. And one of the things that I want this channel to be is to like, you guys are like an ideal conversation for me because I don't want to be again, not that there's anything wrong with the people that are out there for self-help and all that. I mean, you mentioned some that I've listened to as well, and thank God they're there. They give great information. But I don't want to be just another self-help guy. I want to be someone that can inspire people to like, don't think that you have to do something big and bold and get 1,000 likes on Instagram to live this affirmed life. Instead, focus on really doing something cool that means something to you that may not mean anything else to anybody else. I mean, like this podcast,
Yeah.
I can walk out of here and tell 10 people I have a podcast. And they're like, so what? Or, oh, that's cool. That's not why I do it. I always tell people this is like me, this is me building my birdhouse. This, like you said, Josh, this is my creative outlet. I will feel good because this conversation in this podcast yesterday did not exist. And
Yeah.
tomorrow or whenever, and till as long as YouTube and whatever's around, it will be there. It'll be something that the three of us got together and we created out of whole cloth. And that's enough for me.
Yeah.
And I want
Yeah.
people to be inspired by that, not about shedding body fat.
Then what?
Yeah.
Then what happens? You lose the fat,
Yeah.
then,
Then what? Exactly.
yeah.
That,
No, but it's interesting that you put it that way because we're both realizing more and more, it's not about what you do.
no,
All the external stuff, it's not about anything external. And I know it's hard to say sometimes because a job or a home or family and friends can seem so important. They are, but it's always in the service of you,
yep.
for you to learn about yourself, not about externalizing. And it's not easy. It's not easy to remember that all the time. I care about views, I care about performance, But how can I be creative? How can I have a channel? How can I do anything I do, whether on YouTube or not, that's meaningful to me, independent of anybody else? And but yeah, it's true. It's true that there's way too much information that's about how to make ourselves be perfect in some way that doesn't look at the inside aspect. What's going on inside of us? How is that helping us grow inside?
Well, a buddy of mine, now he's a buddy, he was a guest on the podcast, so the show I just released Tuesday, we were talking, and he said, and he's kinda like, overachiever and, type A, all these sorts of things, and he said, "If you're trying to do all those things, then you have to ask yourself why, because a lot of people are doing the things that they're being told on social media or whatever to be something that they're not. They think that they'll be happy if they can be that thing that they're not right now, when in fact, the real magic, as you guys have discovered, and what I'm trying to discover in my life every day is really being just who you are and
Right.
finding ways to enjoy that in meaningful
Mhm.
ways. That's where the magic is. Trying to look a different way, have more stuff, all that to make yourself something that you are not, but you think would be better than what you are. That's a dangerous road. And he brought that up, and I really processed that because there are times whenever I go, I'll see people, I go, I want to be more like that. There's nothing wrong with having a muse, but you got to somehow figure out what are the elements that are in that person that are just better, more accentuated versions that I have within me that I know if I could just really unleash that talent and everything and serve the world better, I would be more content and happy. And I think that
Yeah.
so many people forget that. All right, I need your advice. Now, let's say that Jimlin and I are putting together our list of places we would like to look. Now, we started Normandy. I'm glad you said that, Cecilia, because I just found a chateau that I can't imagine what this place is really like. And
Yes, we were talking about that the
Right.
other day.
Yes.
that
Yes.
that movie, I gotta believe, could totally happen to us. But there was like this chateau for like 675,000 euro that looked amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if it has probably does have no air conditioning, no plumbing, but it looked pretty. It was in Normandy somewhere.
That is that is there's a trend now. A lot of people are buying chateaus because they go for very little money. And the reason is they need so much
So
work done.
be careful,
So
Jason. Whatever you
yes,
do, have it. What they don't do in France is uh, they don't have an inspection
Oh,
system.
uh-huh.
Bring in a plumber, an electrician, anybody you can get your hands on, even if it's 5 people. Look at the roof,
Count.
have them come in and give you an honest assessment.
and by the way, this is another thing that was shocking to me. Anytime you do any remodel inside the house, no inspection, no permits necessary. You
Wow.
can do whatever you want inside the house.
The only they care is when it's exterior, like windows, like skylights, where they go because of neighbors and stuff. But anything on the inside,
You can do whatever you want.
it's
So
the opposite of the
Wow.
US.
yes, so that's something to important to know because somebody could do some bad plumbing and you would never know,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. So beware of the chateaus.
Good. I figured there was something there. Again, I thought I saw myself in the middle of the money pit. All right. So
But you know what? Once you do the kind of inspections, you could go, oh, okay, I need to put in another 100,000
no,
to or
on a
whatever,
chateau.
whatever it is. You know that you're paying 5, but it'll be 7 at the end of the day.
okay.
There's that. That's that to just keep in mind, you know?
So we've looked at we love Provence. Okay. It's like Saint Tropez, St. Paul. I love the medieval villages. So tell
Yeah.
me, did you guys explore the south of France at all?
I know she
We're
was
we're talking about going to,
I mean, there's so much France
oh my
to
god,
see.
Yeah.
and so much Europe to see.
But I think what the advice I would give you is be pulled by those tendencies. We were pulled by Portugal. We were then pulled by the coast in France, things like that. Let yourself go with that gut feeling and absorb information. But then don't lie to yourself.
Okay.
You know, both of you be have good conversations on this is resonating, that's not. Don't waste time.
The
You know?
reason why we haven't been in the south of France is the months in which is highly recommended, which you should listen to, which is in early spring. We had projects going on that we couldn't interrupt, so we kept postponing it. But I didn't want to live in the south of France because I pay attention to climate change. And the south of France is going through a severe change with drought
Okay.
and fires. And being prior to living in California and then in Oregon, I know what that is like. And I didn't want to deal with that.
Okay.
And the tourism thing in the south of France, it gets very touristy.
Because a lot of Parisians go to the south
Yeah.
of France. So
So some warnings about
few
that.
things to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just came back from Holland. We were in Amsterdam. Oh my God, it's gorgeous.
I've heard Amsterdam is just unbelievable. I've heard
Incredible.
things.
Amazing.
Now, here's the thing, too, Jason, I would say is if you're compelled to go to the south of France to visit 3 medieval villages that you just love,
Mhm.
get it out of your system. Maybe there's something that really locks in for you.
Okay.
And who's to say that's not perfect for you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe you love it so much that you're like, this is where my heart belongs. This is where I want to be.
I would definitely, if you're going towards south, visit Bordeaux. Bordeaux is gorgeous.
I've heard.
Yeah, so vineyards galore. It's just very green.
What else is on your list?
So going around, Paris and that. So tell me like why you guys chose south of Paris versus north, east, or west.
If I'm not mistaken, the west and the east, south of Paris are sort of the more desirable
Okay.
areas.
Yeah.
Really west more than east. Where we are, it's way more isolated. So you have to be mindful of that. As you go north, west, or east, we checked out the northeast, Senlis,
Senlis,
Chantilly, that area. And again, it was an energetic thing. We didn't love it.
beautiful, beautiful. What we didn't like is from Paris to that area, to the north of on the countryside, you pass through a really ugly section. Like there is some the ugliest part of Paris.
It gets very busy, trafficky, a lot of graffiti.
Mhm.
So again, what we might call ugly or
Yeah.
undesirable, somebody else might say, "What's your problem? Graffiti is art
True.
or whatever."
Yeah.
So it's all about your appetite for things. But what we saw in the Northeast, we want to go back, but it wasn't an area to live. In the Northwest, I have no idea. But people will tell you, you go north, it's less desirable. Now,
Once you pass that suburbia section, then it's pretty. It's gorgeous.
Okay.
but I want to emphasize, you got to go prove that for yourself.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
If something compels you to go see it, go see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Go see the area that I said, Montfort-la-Marie is worth visiting.
Les Yvelines is
Les
a very
Yvelines,
nice
very nice.
section northwest.
Okay. Okay. Now, tell me some of the things like the differences, like with utilities, phone service, sewer service, water. I mean, is it comparable to having a place in the States? Is it more expensive? Get
It-
turned on?
You know what? I would say it's comparable to what we actually had in Oregon because we were kind of in the woods.
Okay.
We had a septic system. We have a septic system here that we're not trusting very much. We think it's old. It needs servicing.
Septic houses, because in the villages, the way they were built is right next to the house. While in Oregon, we had it 30 meters
Yes,
from
so
our house.
beware of old septic systems, smell issues.
Yep.
You're going to have to do treatments, servicing. Now, we have fiber in the house. We have great internet. So we get fiber all the way out here. Electricity is fine. Water is the city.
And it's delicious. The water is
Yeah, I mean,
delicious.
there's no, you're not in the boonies, living
Super.
like cavemen.
Super hip.
So it's all the amenities.
Cell phone is really inexpensive. So, we pay how much?
So
20,
we're on
20
a
each.
20 a month with
Oh, wow.
So we use them and we just switched phones to the latest iPhone and we're on 5G and I'm seeing 5G runs really well in the area. So honestly, it's like,
Property taxes is teeny, teeny,
Oh,
teeny.
wow.
We come from paying a massive amount of property taxes.
right. So you
and
pay 6% on the purchase
Hmm.
of a home
Mhm.
outright. And then you get for us, it's like under 1,000 a year on
Wow.
taxes, which is
That is,
really
yeah.
low, really low.
Yes.
Beware of the food as well. Like I said earlier, when you're in the countryside,
No
there's a lot of
restaurant.
French. They're not going to be the best French restaurants either. It's more of a countryside, quiet, slower mentality. In a bigger town, 20 minutes away, we have sushi, Indian food. I mean, there's access to. It's not going to be like Paris, but it's going to be in some cases good enough, and you just have to know how to navigate.
Now,
But
I love cooking, so that's not an issue.
Yeah, I like to think that I would wanna go to these great little, I guess, a bodega would be the closest thing, and buy stuff and do a lot of cooking. I would think it would
Mhm.
be great 'cause just the ingredients and just the everything,
yes,
maybe it's
yes.
my idealistic view, but it seems like everything is better. Like, someone did a Jimlin was showing me an Instagram post someone did of a Costco in France, and they had amazing stuff that you would never like sea urchin
Yeah,
and
yes.
sushi and, like, all these in seasonal cheeses, not stuff that you're gonna find at the Texas Costco.
Oh, that's
No,
right, yeah.
here the supermarkets look like supermarkets 50 years ago in United States,
Yeah,
but the quality of the food is outstanding.
Yes,
yeah,
Food
yes.
is religion here.
yeah, right.
If you're far from markets, we're waiting on a freezer to show up today, as a matter of fact, so we can buy larger quantities and be able to freeze because it isn't
It's a
it's not
drive.
as practical as having stuff near you.
Alright.
So,
W One of the things I have to ask you about real quick before we go is the weather. I mean, is it 4 seasons? Is it wet?
very wet,
Okay.
It
very
well, we
wet.
had an unusual. I mean, all the Parisians have said that it has been the most rainy season ever, nonstop throughout the year, like water unlike any other time. I was surprised that in general, Paris has more rain than the UK because you hear always the UK being so rainy.
Mhm.
Paris is more rainy than the UK,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that was a surprise.
So we don't really know. It seems a little more seasonal, but there's been so much rain. And another thing about old houses, Jason, for you guys, this house has no foundation. Really old homes here don't have foundations. So you get water coming, in under the property, and so that can create cracks on the walls, different things, different issues that we're dealing with right now, right?
Wow.
We
And
avoid these
what does he
cracks on
mean
the
by
wall.
water is moisture, not
Sure,
necessarily water.
sure.
It's just moisture.
Yeah.
Because these are like 3 feet wide walls. I mean, these are
Wow.
thick
Yeah.
stones walls. They're so thick. The houses feel very different here
Sure.
just because the construction is so
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
The beauty of the area in spring is breathtaking. The green, the nature, the animals is so magical.
Wow.
To have the fresh air, the pretty visuals, the quiet around you, it just
It's
it makes
beautiful.
a huge difference to your
I
health.
could show you. We're in my office right now, but I'll show you.
Oh my. Oh, that's beautiful.
It's just
Oh my
cool
god.
to see, but
We try to show I've tried to show it in my videos, some of the drone shots. It's all where we live and everything. So
How big's your property? Do you have an acre, 2 acres?
what is it in size? It's
three quarters
I
of
don't
an
think
acre, I
yeah,
think
it's
is.
it's not quite an acre.
We
Yeah.
came from 2.5 acres in Oregon, so we knew we're like, oh, let's tone it down because that was a
Yeah, that's
lot of
perfect.
We
work.
ended up buying too much house in the end. We got
No,
yeah, we
I
did.
like it.
We think we got a bigger house than we had before.
It's hard to find little houses that are cute.
Yeah.
It is the sizing, because you're not in suburbia where you could pick the size. Like in the US, you go to a neighborhood and you pick and choose. You got to sort of take what they have here in the countryside. It's old home, 200 years old, 200 square meters.
Yeah. All right. Last question before we go. What
Yeah.
are a few of the things you miss most about living in America and some of the things that you do not miss at all?
I could start with what I don't miss.
Okay.
I don't miss the commercialism chatter,
Mhm.
politics. Here, when there is elections, they're not allowed to advertise on any TV or social media or
No,
anywhere.
it's like 2 or 3 weeks and then it's over.
And they're not allowed to bombard you with information. It's almost like
Wow.
you go seek the information.
Yeah. And I would say the political stuff would
Yeah.
get so heavy, the divisiveness, even though I think there's plenty of divisiveness here in France and every country has their, but we're more disconnected
Yeah.
from us. The news is
Oh,
pushed on you in such a big negative way.
the concern of shootings that you don't think about that in here.
Don't miss the food. I am sorry.
You're good.
I don't miss the food with some exception. We had a few restaurants in town in Portland that we really liked, but the food is here just so amazing that, how can you miss that? What things
What
do you miss?
what do I miss? I know this is gonna sound really weird, but I miss my favorite shops. Like,
Animal.
you know, my favorite boutique shops that I used to go, that I miss, but there is no shortage of
I
boutiques here.
Yeah.
I miss my dentist.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's another, yes, that's another thing. Here, dentists don't do the thorough work that you do in United
Mm.
States.
As you can see, I'm
Yeah.
going through major dental work right now. I've had 2 jaw surgeries and braces for 2 years, which is real fun being nearly 50 and getting finally
I
so I gotta get my mouth all fixed up before I go overseas.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, because here the teeth is just only if you have
But
cavity
it's
and
also the
yeah.
medical system. You have to know how to navigate it. It
Oof.
takes time to get into their government system, find the doctors. In the countryside, it's kind of a medical desert. So you have to go to Paris, find
So
doctors.
that's another critical important thing. When you pick an area to live, make sure you have access to a variety of either hospitals or clinics, because the medical desert is real.
Okay.
And I did a lot of research on that, and it's throughout the entire country, and it gets worse in the south of France.
Alright.
Yeah.
Anything else you miss or don't miss?
Miss,
What else do we miss?
boy, we're just off the hook here with
Besides a few of my favorite boutiques, just because.
we had a lovely home. I have very fond memories of our home. Having that comfort and being set in a place where you can go to anything, you open a drawer, there's the thing you want.
Yep.
All that comfort.
I miss
Yeah.
sometimes the easiness of, because I speak the language, I knew where everything was, I could drive, everything was. I still feel fish out of water sometimes,
Sure.
and that's a matter of time, and in, doing the process of embedding myself is still, it takes
It
time.
takes a good 2 to 3 years, I would say, before you
More
feel like, oh, now I'm beginning to belong and I get the system and I'm in it, and we're like in barely in year two. So
people are extremely polite and nice to us. So our experience with the French has been, they've been super kind.
I've always
yeah.
said that too. Anytime I've been to France, that's exactly the impression I get. People are like, oh, they've got this stigma that they're rude or whatever. I think that Americans aren't used to the restaurants, and here's what I tell them: whenever waiters aren't overly gregarious and friendly like they are here, and you guys would know better than me, but I tell people you have to understand something. If you're a server in a Parisian restaurant in particular, that is their vocation. It's not a job that they're doing to make some extra money. No, that's what they do. There's much more seriousness about what they're doing. But I've always found people to be very kind and helpful, especially in hotels and navigating around. Everybody has
Yeah.
been wonderful. Last question before I let you go. I could keep you all day. This has been so fun. And I think I know the answer. Would you do it again?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's no
Yes.
regret about leaving.
Now,
If it hadn't been France, it would have been somewhere else. But
this is the life we want to live.
Awesome.
No regrets.
I'm so sorry about the phone, Jason.
Yeah,
It's just
I'm sorry.
off the hook.
Love that. I love that. I'm the same with me and my girls. Well, guys, first of all, I just got to say once again, thank you so much. This has meant so much to me. This exceeded every expectation I could have had for the conversation. I hope that the audience gets as much, if they get a fraction out of this conversation of what I have, it's been a great episode. And please don't let this be the last time we communicate. I mean, we're going to be coming back over there. We might come to Paris. We're trying to decide. I turn 50 next February, and my oldest daughter and I share a birthday. And so we're thinking about taking the girls and going over there. So if we do, maybe we can figure out some time to connect for some coffee or a meal or something like that. But either way, I would love to have you guys back on just to talk about your latest adventure. And we could just geek out on some more just stuff that we're working on with mindfulness. Thank you for sharing your portion of
Yeah.
your afternoon and my morning with us today.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jason. It's been a pleasure, a real pleasure. It's always, I think I expressed to you, I've done a few podcasts in the past, and you always feel like, was that really great? Why did I spend the time?
This was
And
fun.
I felt like I really connected with
Yes.
you. I love where you are in your life and how you're curious yourself. So it was great sharing and being received in the way that we were.
Well, thanks, guys. Well, that does it for this episode of The Jason Wright Show. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a Texas Titan Media production. Fourth Wall did the music. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Please consider going out to jasonwrightnow.com and signing up for the Vitruvian Letter. Also, please go out to iTunes. It takes like 30 seconds to just leave us a 5-star rating. It does wonders for the podcast. I would be so grateful. And with that, until we meet again, go crush it and endeavor to improve always in all ways. I'm out.